When I sat down to watch The Long Walk, I was expecting to get a haunting story, but what I got was something far more powerful. At first, it was full-on slow burn, eerie and emotional, but as the final scenes unfolded, something clicked. There is one big reason this movie stuck with me for why it is so great. In this video, I'm breaking down what makes The Long Walk such a quietly brilliant film and why one element elevates it far beyond your dystopian thriller that you've seen a million times before. When it comes to storytelling, there is probably no one else out there better at it than Stephen King, at least when it comes to his understanding of what makes a really emotional and terrifying narrative, along with mixing that together with multiple different genres, whether it's horror, thrillers, or even coming-of-age stories. The Long Walk was one of King's first stories that he ever wrote, and it's taken this long to finally give it an adaptation on the big screen. To that point, I actually think it's the perfect time for them to finally adapt it. The Long Walk was written around the 60s and 70s era, and really represents not just that time around conflicts like the Vietnam War when it came out, but also our present day, because it taps into deep anxieties that persist across generations about authoritarianism, conformity, survival, and the dehumanizing effects of a spectacle like the Long Walk competition these kids play against one another. The story is as simple as it gets. 50 teenage boys are forced to walk without stopping under the threat of death while the public watches. The last kid standing will win a cash prize where they can ask for whatever they want. But beneath that brutal premise lies a philosophical and political critique that has evolved in meaning over time. If that kind of story resonates with you, I have a feeling you are going to love this movie a lot. In real life, we are living in a very strange and dangerous time that while this movie doesn't necessarily commentate to a major degree of what it shows and what we see now, it is at least painting the picture of the possibility. The Long Walk is not one of Stephen King's horror stories, but it is certainly resonating with arguably for some the best side of his storytelling abilities, which is telling very emotional and dramatic stories of real, authentic, and pure human beings. The Long Walk doesn't hold back with a lot of the conversations that it has when we see characters talking to each other. It doesn't hold back with the brutal and heartbreaking violence that it depicts of these kids, and it also is not going to shy away to acknowledge what it's speaking to from that philosophical perspective. Based on that description, I think you would see people compare this most to other Stephen King stories like The Green Mile or Stand By Me. Now, as of me making this video, I have not seen The Green Mile fully yet. I've only ever seen clips, but I did watch Stand By Me for the first time in full several days before I watched The Long Walk. I remember one time in school when I was younger, I was shown The Long Walk as a class film, but I never fully paid attention. I think that might have been for the best because watching it as a young adult, it gives me a better perspective on life given what that movie's story is about. The Long Walk is no different and really does pull from Stand By Me a lot. In other ways, it pulls from other stories that are based on why I titled the video the way that I did. What is that one big reason for why The Long Walk is so great? It's the name of the very man who brought us this movie along with several other great pieces of film. Francis Lawrence. Francis Lawrence is a director who everyone needs to be talking about way more than we already had been. The very man who brought us films like the original Constantine with Keanu Reeves, the Hunger Games movies such as Catching Fire, The Mockingjay Part 1 and Part 2, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, and then something as underrated as I Am Legend. His career is filled with so much that people would consider to be good cinema, even if not great, but I personally still think that he is a great director. I've watched many different directors and their works since I've started watching movies, and even television for that matter. Francis Lawrence is one of the only ones I've ever seen that so perfectly knows how to direct actors and authentically world build through those performances that he brings out of them. Yes, acting is a way in which you can help develop your characters, but it's also on the director to bring that out of an actor. There have been so many great performances in all of his movies. Jennifer Lawrence as Katniss Everdeen is still very good and an iconic role that lives within a dystopian world very similar to The Long Walk. Will Smith in I Am Legend is still to this day a very heartbreaking tale of a man who's got so much pressure on his shoulders to do something that may or may not feel worth it anymore with saving humanity from a deadly virus that wiped them all out. Even the side characters in Francis Lawrence movies play great roles. He just has a way with actors that you don't really see too often in many directors that know how to do it. The Long Walk is a very emotional movie, and so there are just about a million scenes with actors breaking down from mental stress, the pain of continuing the walk for days on end, and then even when the moment comes for them to lose and punch their ticket. He is so good at telling a story that way, and that's one of the biggest reasons why I am so ecstatic to now finally know about what he's doing next in his career. It was announced only about a week before The Long Walk came out that his next project to direct after he finishes shooting the new Hunger Games movie will be an adaptation of the famous video game series BioShock. I recently played it all the way through for the first time in the last year on my gaming channel, and it is an experience for sure. When it comes to adapting it on the big screen, in my mind, there were only two directors who I personally thought could do it best, either Francis Lawrence or Gore Verbinski, who directed the entire original Pirates of the Caribbean trilogy. Verbinski has a particular way to direct with how I described Francis. They know how to world build, and they are great at directing actors. When Netflix ended up getting Francis for that job, I couldn't have been more happy. With all of that stuff aside, there's no more perfect of a transition with what I just talked about with regards to acting than to now talk about the actors. This movie is filled with an amazing cast from the side actors to the main few whose stories we follow the most. Mark Hamill plays such a great and disgusting villain that you actively hate anytime he shows up on screen in the limited role that he is given. He is a character that doesn't have any major backstory given to him, but with what we do get of him, he is surprisingly effective in just how much you want him to die for what he's doing to these kids. But that's not even the best of it. That, ladies and gentlemen, is for our two main leads, David Jonsson and Cooper Hoffman. Yes, the very son of the famous Philip Seymour Hoffman, who also just so happened to have worked with Francis Lawrence for his Hunger Games movies, right before he sadly passed away. Francis found a way to direct Philip in those movies so well, and he has now found a way to do it with his son. Cooper as Raymond Garrity is fantastic, and the beating heart to a story that we get the most development for. He is a guy looking for a purpose in wanting to win this competition, and it's a very justifiable reason, even if at times he might be a little crazy with how much he wants to do it, but it's still admirable. He duos up with David Johnson's Peter McVries, who bonds with Garrity in what could end up being the best bromance of 2025 through all film and television. These two are electric when they need to be in stressful moments, and they are also very grounded when it's required to get real with each other about what they want. I'm not saying that either of these two have a chance of getting an Oscar nomination, but they are so damn good that all I really needed to see from them is that I could potentially be witnessing two generational talents become something bigger. They are so good, especially Jonsson, who in many scenes might honestly have carried the whole film. I saw him recently in Alien Romulus for the first time, and he is also very good there. I love when I can find a new actor to gravitate towards, and I am so ready to watch anything he does in the future. Other than Francis Lawrence, if there is a reason why I'd recommend anyone watch this movie, it is because of these two and their amazing chemistry. It's some of the best you'll see on screen all year, and it's wildly entertaining. So in the end, what does this movie represent? Why is it so important in my eyes? I think what The Long Walk represents is a continued faith that when a great creative mind and team of actors are called upon to adapt a piece of work in the best way possible, you can get something truly amazing. Book adaptations are a dime a dozen these days when it comes to having a really famous book author have their work adapted to the big screen, no matter the format, live action, animated, and so on. It feels like at least recently, if you don't count something as big as Harry Potter, which is getting a new TV adaptation, the only other authors I can think of that are big enough to where their work is going to be highly anticipated by an audience to see is Stephen King and someone like Suzanne Collins, who wrote all of the Hunger Games. It's ironic that these two names are mentioned given that Francis Lawrence has adapted for both of them now, but the hype and love for both of their works is still there. I remember a time growing up when young adult books and other various pieces of literature were getting adaptations like they were nothing. It was a wildly popular thing for movie studios and television to do, and recently it seems like we are getting a very limited amount of those. What The Long Walk proves is that you can still do it, especially for someone like Stephen King, who is still as popular as he is with the types of stories that he's created. No one has had more than him done, and I don't expect that it's going to end anytime soon until we reach a point where you can't, because you've run out of stories from him to tell. The Long Walk also proves that when you have the right team behind it, you are going to get nothing but pure cinema in a way where only so many other adaptations have come and gone before. This cast, and so much about it from the production design, cinematography, and even more, were fantastic. But Francis Lawrence, for me, is the number one reason why it was so great. And there you have it. That is my commentary and analysis completed. Apologies for those who are already subscribed for the lack of content that I've put out lately. We are in a bit of a drought period as of right now, but this movie was something that I had to make a video on. What do you all think of it, if you've seen it already, and what aspect of it did you gravitate towards the most? Leave your comments down below, and thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like button, subscribe if you are new here, and please turn on that notification bell. I'm trying to build an awesome film community on here, and your support would be appreciated. That's a wrap, folks. I hope everyone here has a wonderful rest of the day, and I will see you all soon for the next video.